What's up, my loves? Welcome back to another episode of the Fully Alive podcast. My name is Stephanie. I'm your girl. I'm your host, entrepreneur, mentor, and coach for high achievers. And this is the place where you get to learn all about purpose, mindset, spirituality, entrepreneurship, and overall creating a life that makes you feel fully alive from the inside out. Today, we are diving into a podcast episode that is super near and dear to my heart around being misunderstood and your capacity to hold space for others to misunderstand you within your own life. One of the biggest and most common things that I see within most high achievers, but especially entrepreneurs, is this desire to not appear cringe, this desire to not be judged by other people as inexperienced or not knowing what you're talking about or in the beginning stages, this desire to show up and be perfect for everybody. And you say maybe within yourself, like, oh, well, if I just say it in this way, then they'll get it. Or if I just show up and I have this perfect branding in this specific way, then they'll get it, then they'll understand, then they won't think X, Y, and Z. They won't think I'm a beginner. They won't think that I'm doing something that's out of the box. Then they'll get it. And you start confining yourself over time into this cookie cutter version so that nobody misunderstands you. And I see this so often. You get further and further from your own truth and from who you feel like you know yourself to be because you are so worried about micromanaging how other people understand you and if they misunderstand you and if they misinterpret things, especially with cancel culture right now. Of like, oh, well, if you say one thing in the wrong way, then you could be canceled. So you don't want to misstep. You don't want to say something out of line because God forbid you're not perfect and you don't have it right the first time. Then what? Right? And we become shells of ourselves in the process. And instead of honoring truth and being messy with it and figuring things out along the way, we try and be perfect from the start so that nobody misunderstands you. And what I have found is that the process of business and entrepreneurship is expanding your capacity to be misunderstood. Because when you start living a life that is in true alignment with yourself, 99% of people aren't going to get it. 99% of people will misunderstand you because it is not their job to get it. They are not walking your path. They do not have your heart. They do not have your vision. They do not have your connection with source. So who are they to understand it? They are walking their own path. They literally have all of their own shit to go through. Their job is not on top of that to also then perfectly understand you and perfectly get everything that you're trying to say so that you don't feel something within your own self, right? The process of business is, can I stay true to myself and know who I am, even amidst being misunderstood? Most people won't get it. And I always like to think about, if you imagine yourself on a stage, whether you want to speak on a stage or not, just hang with me for a second. If you imagine yourself speaking on a stage, 50% of the people that you are speaking to are going to get it. And 50% of the people that you're speaking to are going to completely misinterpret it based on what's going on within their own minds. They might have something to say about your shoes or how you spoke or that your voice is annoying. I've gotten that one before. Somebody commented that on one of my TikToks once, and I was like, oh, that's a funny one. Maybe if you just heard me talk in a few of their octaves, then you wouldn't think my voice is annoying, right? But like, somebody's going to have something to say. Somebody will have something to say, no matter who you are, no matter how amazing you are at what you do. 50% of the people in that room might misinterpret you. And out of the 50% of the people who get it, maybe 5% really resonate with it deeply. And they're like, wow, that touched my soul on such a deep level. Maybe 1% is like, oh my God, I'm your biggest fan, right? But not every single person is going to be that. And I don't say that to sound negative or crush anything. It's just reality because we're all human. We're all so human. And to me, the most potent and powerful place that you can be is staying true to yourself such that it doesn't matter if other people misunderstand you because it's not their job to. And as high achievers, I consistently notice this buffering from being misunderstood. You say, oh, well, if I just say it in this way, then they'll get it. Or if I just show up and I look perfect, then they'll get it. Or if they really knew me, if they actually spent extended time, maybe I just need to explain to them kind of where I've come from and why I have this perspective, then they'll get it. Or I just won't talk to them about it because they don't understand it. Or I won't post it in this certain way because what if people don't get it? Or I'll just block them from my stories because they don't get it and I don't want them to misunderstand me. I just don't have time to deal with that, right? It's like we start buffering and caving the walls in on yourself, trying to create this version of yourself that is perfectly understood by all, which in fact is impossible. And so who are you actually doing that for, and why are you doing it? Is it actually because you're worried about them misunderstanding you? Or is it the result of what happens on the flip side and how you feel about yourself when you are misunderstood? That is the thing to sit with. And to me, if the process of our life is for growth and evolution, and the purpose is to continually evolve, then that's the pattern I look at. Not trying to micromanage. And I've totally been there, done that. I have had my time trying to micromanage how everybody else perceives me. And I still see that pattern pop up from time to time because we're not perfect. And growth is the constant process of evolution. But if for me, the purpose of my life is to evolve over time, then I look at that pattern of how do I feel when somebody misunderstands me? Can I stay strong within myself and hold true to who I am, even when 50% of the people might not get it? They might not understand why I'm doing something in a certain way. They might not understand what I'm saying or the message that I'm bringing, but when it's from my heart, that's the biggest thing that I can do. The greatest thing. So to me, it's like, what the fuck if they misunderstand? What if they do? 99% of people might. And if we look at the layers, and you'll have your own experience of all of this, but when I start to unravel that, it's like, oh, well, if I'm misunderstood, well, then they're making up a perception of me that isn't actually true. Like, that's not actually what I mean. That's not actually who I am. They're making something else up. Well, if they're making something else up, then what? Oh, well, that would suck. Like, that just doesn't feel good, right? Well, why doesn't it feel good? It doesn't feel good because on some level, my own value is placed in how they perceive me. My own self-perception depends on how they perceive me. That's where to start, is how do you perceive yourself? And the way to become bulletproof in a sense, or to get good, let's say, to master the ability to be misunderstood, is to recognize 99% of people might. So what? So what the fuck? Get good with you first and start living in a way that you're actually proud of within yourself. And to recognize that it's not your job to micromanage how they perceive it. It's not your job. Think back to that example that I was saying. Let's say you're speaking on a stage in front of 10,000 people. Imagine how much time and energy it would take to make sure that every single human being in that room out of 10,000 people fully gets it and fully understands you. If you went around to every single person, you're like, did this make sense? Did this understand? Did you exactly get me in the exact way that I wanted to show myself and perceive myself in the exact thing that is coming from my heart? Did you understand it? Imagine if you talked to every single person and you had to make sure that they understood it. Do you know how much time and energy that would take? It would take way too much. So why are you doing that in your life right now? Why are you trying to do that on a small scale with every conversation that you have, every person that you speak to, every time you show up on your Instagram stories, trying to make sure it's so perfect so that it cannot possibly be misunderstood? It's taking all of your time and energy away. And you know what's a more useful use of your time and energy, and how to actually get good with being misunderstood? Ooh, that's right. Get good with being misunderstood. I love it. So, is to actually be real and true with who you are. To pause and say, am I acting in alignment with really where I see myself and how I want to show up in business, in life, in my relationships? Or am I just acting according to a model? Am I just doing something because that's what I feel like I should do, and that's what sounds right, and that's what looks right? But deep down, I'm afraid that somebody's going to find out that I'm actually not living in alignment with myself. Like, I have this dirty little secret that if somebody really knew, then what? Get good with those parts of yourself. Come back into alignment with what's real and true, and be proud of how you live. I find that the greatest sensation, and y'all, I've walked through this myself. I used to be terrified of being misunderstood. So terrified. I wouldn't talk to certain people about certain things. I would show up in a certain way on my Instagram stories. I would say and do different things in business to try and make sure that everybody got it. And then I just realized it's like, it takes so much energy. So much energy to do that takes away from the potency of your heart. When you speak from your heart, that is when people get it. That is when the right people resonate with it. And you're taking away that experience by trying to appeal to every single person who might not ever get it. And what I have found is that when I can end the day and say, I'm so proud of how I was living. I'm so proud of the choices that I made today. They weren't perfect. I didn't do everything right. I sounded stupid. I embarrassed myself. That's okay. But I'm proud of how I lived. I am proud of how I lived. And tomorrow I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my best again. I can get right in my heart that I'm not perfect, but I'm human and I'm doing my best to act in alignment with that part of myself. When you can end the day like that, there's an energy of find anything out about me because I am proud of who I am. I'm proud of how I show up. I'm proud of how I bring things into the world. And that is magnetic. That's magnetic business, is find anything out about me. I'm proud of who I am. I lead myself in the way that I desire to lead myself. I'm walking through my own life experience in a way that I am proud of. And if you don't feel like you're at that place yet, that's okay. There's no right or wrong. We're all growing and evolving. Again, it's not about being perfect. It's about trying your best to be in right relation to you and that connection to source and doing that thing that you feel like has been on your mind to do for so long. And if there is a part of your life where you feel like, oh, that's the one part where I know there's something that I've been wanting to do. I know there's a conversation I've been wanting to have. I know there's a decision that I've been wanting to make to really feel proud, to really feel like I'm in truth with myself. And then I invite you to explore what that would be like to actually do it. And it doesn't need to be overnight, it doesn't need to be right now, but to plant the seed of like, when you do that thing, I'm curious what the liberation on the other side actually feels like. I'm curious how magnetic you will feel. I'm curious the opportunities that will come your way when you feel like you are so proud of the way that you live that anybody can misunderstand you. Anybody cannot get it because you are good with you. And that's the basis to start. And that's the basis of being magnetic. So, with all that said, I invite you to take some time, sit with yourself, and notice like, what are the ways that you are proud of how you're living right now? And are there any ways that you want to clean up? Any areas where you're like, ooh, I could clean that up a little bit to get really, really proud of how you live? And then notice what it would be like to open yourself up to experiences that maybe you used as a buffer in the past. Certain people that you didn't want to talk to about certain things, certain sides of yourself that you didn't want to bring to the table, certain ways of speaking online or in your business that you didn't want to bring because you're afraid of people not getting it. What would happen if you released from there? Curious. Anyways, my dears, I adore you all. I hope that this has been a fun little snippet for your day and that something has deeply resonated with you. I know that this has been a conversation that has been swirling in my world with my clients and exploring it within myself. And it is a beautiful thing to start to dive into and really unravel it for the sake of being fully alive within your life. So I can't wait to see you on the next episode. And as always, if you enjoyed this, go ahead and subscribe to this podcast episode and you'll get notified for any future podcast episodes that we do every single week. Mwah! See you there.